Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Crimson and in this video we are going to be continuing our look through of the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice official Artworks book. So I do apologize for part 1 for two reasons. One, just when I was editing, I noticed that there were some parts of the book that were out of frame, and that is my fault. I will do my best to fix that for all art books going forward. Let's go ahead and get started. Also, this is the first video where we are utilizing my new Hollow Knight bookmark instead of the eyedrop bookmark, so we are moving up in the world, everyone. So, this is a section dedicated to the Shinobi prosthetics. So this is a picture here of the Shinobi prosthetic. The Shinobi prosthetic was given to Wolf by the sculptor in the dilapidated temple. The sculptor had used it after losing his arm to Lord Ishin, but he gave it on to Wolf. Very cool, and it's really interesting seeing a take on what a prosthetic arm might look like in this time period. Here we see some of the concept arts and designs going into it on how the arm actually functions and is put together. You know, here is how some of the fingers move. Here's how some of the fingers and other abilities are attached to it. So all really, really cool. I adore this stuff. So here we have some of the prosthetics. So the main one here is the shuriken. The shuriken is probably the most basic of the prosthetic tools, but it's one of the ones you will unlock first, but it is by no means the weakest one, especially once you upgrade it further to the sapphire part. It is so good, especially for knocking enemies out of the air, such as Lady Butterfly. The shuriken is always in my quick bar for the prosthetic tool. Up next, we have some more concept art of the prosthetic in question. So this kind of shows how the different weapons are actually attached to it. So we can see here it is attached near the end of the bone part of the prosthetic. Another picture here shows it kind of how it reaches down just above the palm, so you have to kind of lift your wrist up. Very similar to the hidden blade for Assassin's Creed. Here we have the axe prosthetic. Very good. It's a very slow attack, but for dealing with enemies with shields or enemies that take a lot of stagger damage, this is very, very good. Here is the cannon tool that we use. It fires a little cannonball or a mini cannonball, dealing both impact and fire damage on enemies. Again, we have some more pictures and here of how it would work. Here's how it slots in and kind of its mechanisms and stuff. All of these kind of things I absolutely adore looking through an art book. So here is the umbrella shield tool. This essentially acts as a little shield that you can pop up to completely deflect an attack and negate any incoming damage. It is kind of cool. It's very situational. I personally am not the biggest fan of it. It's not bad by any means, don't get me wrong, but it is just not kind of for me. Here we have one of the prosthetics. I believe this is the reef prosthetic. And as you can see here, this is how it progresses as you upgrade it. So it starts off with just this little leaf, then a much larger leaf, and then a leaf that kind of looks more ethereal and stuff. This is meant to make enemies disappear when you use it, and you can use it to actually further an NPC's quest there's a man who was left behind in Sempo Temple, and you can use this once it's fully upgraded to send him to the Divine Realm to kind of put him at peace. The man appears to be somewhat of a half-wit, but he is a very kind man and a very gentle and nice. So down here we have the Sabimaru prosthetic. This is a tanto, which is essentially a dagger version of a katana or wakizashi. However, this is a poison blade, so this is very good for enemies who are both weak to poison and also good at chipping away health. One hit from this starts the dots per second countdown that poison works with. So it's very good for hitting an enemy with this and then running away. For example, the snake eyes enemies are very, very weak to this. So next up, we have the spear. The spear is a very situational weapon. I personally, again, don't really use this. It's good for getting enemies at a range, but in my opinion, and it's also really good for enemies who are weak to thrust damage. But in my opinion, by the time you get close to an enemy, select this prosthetic and then use the prosthetic. In the time it takes to do all that, you can just close the distance and use your katana. So it's cool, it's a very nice idea, but in my opinion, it is not the best. Here is the finger whistle that I mentioned during the Guardian Ape and the Demon of Hatred. So just to for a quick little recap, this belonged to the woman that the sculptor was in love with, who was eaten by the ape, and once we defeat him, we get this, and then we can bring it back to the sculptor and essentially tell him what ended up happening, which is very, very sad. And that is the end of the prosthetic section. So we are now going to move on to the start of the environment section. One thing I just want to add, and this is just my personal take, so I'm interested to see what you guys think. I am not that big on using prosthetic tools in Sekiro. I only really use the shuriken, but that's really it, and even that is mostly situational, only for essentially Lady Butterfly. Most of my playthroughs, I actually don't even use it, but I have gone through and unlocked all upgrades for all versions of it through the New Game Plus. So with that out of the way, let us start on the environments. Okay, let's get started. Sorry. So, Sekiro. So this is the start of the environment portion of the art book. So we start off with this black and white picture of Kuro and Wolf. Wolf is kneeling. I do not know what this says here. If anyone does read Japanese, and I would like to know, I'll leave this up for a couple of seconds just so you can read it or take a screenshot. As I said, I am actually starting to learn how to read Japanese and also speak Japanese, but mainly read Japanese so that I can, understand all of these art books, because at least a solid third of my art books are Japanese books. Anyway, so we start off with this double spread here. This is a picture showing the battlefield that is shown in the introduction cutscene of the game. And yeah, you can see a watchtower here with a crow. This being a battlefield, there's loads of crows and other carrion birds flying around eating corpses. You guys might not be able to see it, but here is a man seemingly impaled on a pike. And yeah, also just before we continue, I'm not going to be spending as much time on most of the environments as I did with the characters. I'll just kind of be explaining the area, what's going on in it, and whereabouts in the game it is located. So we start off with a couple of pictures here. So these two pictures here, let me just move this, sorry, so you guys can see without the glare. So these two pictures on the top show the introductory cutscene of the game. So this is the samurai who is currently running for his life and stumbling upon someone killing one of his comrades in arms. This picture is also part of, or at least if not part of the cutscene, showing a scene or an art piece from the cutscene of the same man kind of crossing a river underneath these beautiful trees with a bright sunny day despite the brutal war going on. So here we have two pictures showing the same scene from different angles. This is also part of the introductory cutscene. So this smaller figure here, let me move this so you can see it, sorry. This smaller figure here and here is Lord Isshin Ashina, and this larger figure here and here is General Tamura. So in the cutscene, these two have a one-on-one duel to the death. And despite Tamura's massive size and massive weapon, Isshin is able to dispatch him with ease, managing to block a massive thrust with his weapon, then countering by stabbing Tamura in the foot, and then as he kind of bends down, Isshin jumps on his back and plunges his katana into his neck. So based on the context of the fight, it appears that this was the final confrontation for the war for Ashina's independence, and with General Tamura being defeated, that kind of marked the end of the conflict and secured Ashina as an independent territory. Here we have some more pictures. This one is very dark, I do apologize, but it essentially shows Wolf as he is fully grown up. So this is him when Shinobi Owl is explaining the Iron Code, and right before Wolf meets Lord Kuro for the first time. This is another picture of the same cutscene. So we have Wolf on his knees, bowing in respect, and behind this door here is Lord Kuro. However, in this picture, the door is, or the window is not quite open. I'm not sure what the term is for these types of doors. Again, this is a very dark piece. Even looking at it, for me, it's very difficult to actually make out what is what. So here is this is the piece of paper that Lady Emma drops down into the hole where Wolf is essentially saying that Kuro is still alive and needs your help to escape. Here is another picture here. Very difficult to make out. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So here we have Lady Emma with her red umbrella heading towards the hole that Wolf was thrown into. Wolf at this point is essentially wanting to die. He's failed his master and no longer views his life as worth anything, and has just accepted his death based on his inability to protect his lord. But due to Lady Emma giving him this message, or this note, he gains purpose back. I do wish we got to see more of Lady Emma's umbrella, as I think it's really, really cool. maybe having an umbrella type moveset or a deflection for her boss fight in the Shura ending, but that's just me, kind of wishy-washy. So here we have some more pictures of Wolf. This is him kind of going through the stages of rescuing Kuro. I do apologize, I actually can't even make out what this picture is. If anyone does know, please let me know. This is the gate where we fight our very first boss in the game. He is not a tough boss at all. He's essentially just a regular enemy with slightly more health, but also has a health bar. He's essentially there to teach you the combat method in terms of the rhythm for parrying. And this is Wolf at the end of rescuing Kuro. And this is Wolf after receiving the letter, making his way out of the pit that he is currently in. I think the pit is it's both literal and symbolic. You know, he's in a pit of despair as well as being in a literal pit. So this is Wolf sneaking into the camp where he knows Kuro is being held. And this is him sneaking through some grass to go under this building. What's interesting is that one of the mechanics in Sekiro, in terms of getting specific endings and learning lore about both what's going on as well as the grander scope of the game, is you were able to listen in on conversations, and when you were under this building, you're able to overhear two Ashina soldiers speaking. And they're saying, like, hey, shouldn't we, like, tie up or, you know, kill the shinobi that we threw in the hole? And the other guy essentially says, no, he's, you know, accepted defeat and he's essentially living dead at this point. He's not even worth the effort or worth the rope to tie up. So they laugh and be like, oh yeah, that's true. Not knowing that Wolf is literally directly underneath them, ready to attack. So this is the stronghold where Kuro is being kept. As you can see, it appears to be daytime in this picture, and there is a Ashina soldier here, probably standing guard to make sure that no one gets in. Sorry, I don't know why I paused there. So Wolf, being Wolf, sneaks around the back, mantles over some ledges, crawls and shimmies his way across some ledges, and comes in through this window where we see Kuro reading a book. I mentioned this in the character section about how Lord Genichiro doesn't actually want to force Kuro or, you know, harm him, and it's it's even more evident here how Kuro is, you know, left with a window open, and then a 2-story building with no chains, no shackles, and plenty of reading material. So obviously Genichiro, you know, cares about Kuro to some point and is imprisoning him, yes, but at the same time doesn't want to be cruel to the boy. Again, another reason why Genichiro is my favorite character. So this is some of the tapestries that we can find inside of Ashina Castle. Not going to spend too much time on it, but they are very reminiscent of the traditional Japanese art style that was prevalent in this time period. So here is an amazing double spread. So this is after we have rescued our Lord Kuro, have made our way to the exit, and have blown the reed whistle to summon it's time to escape. To summon Kuro, and is also the signal to let him know it's time to escape. So we go through the door, and we make our way out into this field of white flowers or white wheat with a moon presence. A large moon showing here. Sorry, I saw a moon and immediately thought of moon presence based on Bloodborne. Anyway, so we have Wolf here on the right. Then we have Kuro to his left, and over here is Lord Genichiro. So this is where the first boss fight, like a real boss fight, ensues. And this is one of those boss fights that you are intended to lose. And for most players, Genichiro absolutely wipes the floor with you. Actually, let me just see what the next... Okay, yeah. What's interesting, though, is... so once you lose the fight normally, Genichiro cuts off Wolf's left arm. And that's the reason why he has the shinobi prosthetic. However, if you defeat Lord Genichiro in this fight, Wolf gets distracted by one of Genichiro's men running at Kuro, and during this moment of distraction, Genichiro still cuts Wolf's arm off. It's a little bit contrived, in my opinion, but it is interesting how either way Wolf does lose his arm. So here we have a double spread of the entirety of Ashina Castle. From the lower castles here, these buildings up here are kind of, actually, I think this building here is where Lord Ishin is, but at the very top we make our way up, and at the absolute top here is where Kuro and Genichiro are, and so is Lady Emma as well. And this is where we have our first boss fight with Genichiro, where we are not meant to lose. Fun fact, Genichiro is my favorite boss fight in the game. I often play Sekiro just to fight Genichiro, and then I'll stop playing the game. I adore fighting him. He is one of the best boss fights in the game. Once you know his moveset, he's very easy to defeat, but still, it's so much fun to me. Okay, so here is a picture of the dilapidated temple. So after Wolf loses his arm and Kuro's kidnapped and Wolf passes out, he wakes up here, where we first meet the sculptor. The sculptor has given Wolf the shinobi prosthetic and essentially tells him what happened, that Lord Kuro has been taken. And we then go on our way to begin the game properly. This is also where we first meet Lady Emma and Hanbei, who is the immortal swordsman that I mentioned in part 1, who kind of acts as a training NPC. Hanbei is very similar to Manji, in my opinion, from the Blade of the Immortal manga. If you have not read Blade of the Immortal, I would actually strongly recommend it, especially if you like Sekiro. It is so good, but I'll save manga talk for another video. So here we have the statues. These are essentially our bonfires or lanterns or whatever you would like to call them, sites of grace for Sekiro. They act as your rest point. You rest at them, you get all your health and your healing gourds back, but all of the enemies respawn. We see here a pendant that we get, a little shrine altar, and some of the buildings that we make our way over and through as we first get into the game. So this is Wolf after he has left the temple. This is him coming to a bridge which has been destroyed, leaving us to mantle and go around the outskirts of Ashina. This is also where we meet the memorial mob, which is an NPC which we can find throughout the game, and he sells various items from healing gourds to coin pouches to shinobi prosthetics and much more. Very interesting NPC. Sorry, I had the picture out of frame, but yeah, he essentially says, you know, wherever the dead are, there memorial mob follow. And you can see there's loads of crows and ravens around him. So this is Wolf here coming into... Actually, let me explain the bottom picture first. So this is a picture of a house that has been destroyed that we make our way through it unless we play the game. This is one of the things, I believe actually our first Shinobi prosthetic is in here. I believe this is where we get the shuriken, however I may be wrong. But this is where we find and fight our first boss. This boss is a general of the Ashina forces. He has 2 health bars, but is not the most difficult enemy. He's difficult at the start, but after a while you get the hang of it. What's cool about him, and a lot of bosses in Sekiro, is you are able to sneak around him. And if you manage to get a sneak or a stealth death blow or an aerial death blow on any of the bosses, regardless of their health, it instantly gets rid of one of their phases. Or sorry, their health phases. When I say phases, I don't mean like, you know, how some bosses in Dark Souls have, you know, the first phase and then phase 2, where each phase is completely different. That is the case for some of the bosses in Sekiro, such as the Guardian Ape. But for these kinds of bosses, it essentially just means you have to deplete their health bar twice. Here is a picture of another samurai boss, which we fight after defeating the Chained Ogre. As you can see, we have some, I believe these are sakura trees. I might be wrong about that. It's just the pink tone of the picture makes it look like that. This boss, again, is very similar to the one we just saw on the page beforehand. However, the difference is this guy is surrounded by soldiers. There's about 12 soldiers in 12 or 9 soldiers, I can't remember. A mixture of standard infantry, of more armored samurai, of some rifle enemies, and of one of the pot bangers, which alerts all of the enemies in the area, including the boss. So the best strategy here is to kill all of the ads beforehand, and then once they are all dead, go and defeat the boss. And if you can, land a death blow on him. But if not, he's no big deal. Very similar moveset, if not the exact same moveset as the other samurai. So this is after we have defeated him. We jump down and we find this area here. This is kind of like a side area, and we see on this temple that there is a note stapled to it. And the note says, or the note essentially says that a bunch of soldiers went and tried to kill one of the headless enemies. However, they all died, and the surviving soldier wrote this note, and the quote that he says is, "Our spears and swords are useless. We cannot behead the headless." If you continue down this path, this is the area where we first encounter the headless, or our first headless enemy. At this stage in the game, there is no chance against him. So this is something that you have to kind of find and then take note of and come back at a later time once you are more powerful and have more health. And have more confetti, of course. So this is, as we make our way through the area, sorry, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, where we are making our way through the Ashina outskirts, and we are trailed and stalked by a massive serpent. This serpent we encounter later. It's possible to kill him to get a very important item for one of the endings. But this is a stealth section where we have to stealth our way past the serpent, sneak past him, sneak under him, and all of that stuff. However, there is a little marriage casket here, which Wolf can hide in. Once you hide in here, the snake kind of notices you, and with one of his eyes, kind of slowly moves towards the crate. Once he is close enough, Wolf plunges his sword into the serpent's eye, sending the serpent into a pain and rage-induced frenzy. And at this point, you just have to abandon all stealth and run as fast as you can, because if you get hit by the serpent at this point, it is game over. Here is another Ashina settlement. As you can see, these settlements are not in the best of state. They are very dilapidated looking, kind of falling apart, almost like the wood is rotted, and there's loads of crows and stuff flying around, showing that, you know, there's so many dead soldiers and horses and everything that the crows are eating extremely well. Here we have more pictures of Wolf moving through the Ashen outskirts. This is him kind of passing through a gate, and this looks like him making his way through the same fortification section that we just saw in the last page. Here are some pictures of some of the houses and buildings. As you can see, they are extremely worn down. Let me zoom in a little bit, sorry. Here is a watchtower that we can see. Again, it's kind of to scale, so you have the tower itself and then Wolf for a size comparison. Here's Wolf getting closer and closer to the Ashina Castle. This is him making his way up the staircase, nearing the castle itself. And this is Wolf once he has dealt with all of the enemies in this area and has finally made it onto the rooftops of the surrounding buildings of the castle. So you have to make your way up through the buildings, kind of going from rooftop to rooftop, to then finally grapple up to the castle, where there are multiple types of enemies that are on the rooftops guarding it. There's one enemy which has become a meme, who's essentially floating on a parachute, and once he sees you, he like dive bombs you and screams at the top of his lungs. It's so funny, and especially the first time, because unless you know it's coming and or have the reflexes of a god, he will hit you 99% of the time. It is possible to deflect him, but it's very difficult even if you know that he's coming. So here, these are two very dark pictures. I actually can't even see what this bottom one is, but this is the interior of the Ashina Castle. I believe this is the room where we first enter the interior. As you can see, it's very neat. It's very typical of a feudal Japan era castle. And then here we have another tapestry picture of some of the art that we find inside of the castle. I adore this art style. I actually have a picture of a authentic Japanese piece like this in my sitting room of a samurai. I will put a picture of it somewhere here. Moving along. Here we have a picture of one of the lower floors of the Ashina Castle, with some bridges and walkways. We have the option of jumping down here, both now and later on in the game. Later on in the game, I believe that there is another version of the chained ogre down here, but patrolling these corridors are some of the Ashina elite samurai, which are essentially the noble caste of samurai for the Ashina Castle. So they're basically like the Ashina nobles. Wolf is here. I don't know if you can make him out, with another picture of a samurai picture that we can find. All of these types of pictures we can find as we explore the Ashina Castle. I know I've said this, but I just want to clarify. These pictures are extremely dark. Not all of them, but so far a lot of them have been. So it's not just that the camera is making them appear dark, they are extremely dark even from me looking at them. So here is another picture of the Ashina interior. Here is what looks like an overhead map of the Ashina region, or at least most of it. So we have some of the outskirts here, and then we have the area leading up to the castle, and then here is an overhead picture of the castle itself. Some more tapestry art here. This picture is another area where we fight a boss. This is a boss that is essentially a souped up version of one of the Ashina samurai nobles. He attacks very, very fast and very, very hard. However, he goes down very quickly. So if you are able to deflect his attacks, he is a piece of cake. However, if you cannot, he will be very, very difficult. And again, some more tapestry art. Here's a picture of Wolf with some of the more banisters. What looks like to be a bit of the exterior of the Ashina castle. However, it does look like it's maybe under the castle. I actually can't remember this area at all. And again, some more tapestry work here. Here we have another boss room. So we have some samurai armor here. And here is the room where Lord Ishin is currently being taken care of and resting. Let me move this closer. So we have Wolf on the left, and we have Lady Emma, who is tending to Lord Ishin, and then Lord Ishin laying down, receiving treatment and care from Emma. At this point, Ishin is a very, very old man. So Lady Emma is essentially his doctor, and as I mentioned in part 1, she is an extremely skilled healer. I wish these pictures weren't so dark. Oh my god. Again, another picture of one of the rooms. I believe this is the same picture of the room that we just mentioned, just from a different angle. This picture here, I don't know what this is. It looks like some kind of interior, but it's so dark, I can't even see. I don't know why they made this artwork so dark. I don't understand it, because even I can't see it. Here is some pictures of some of the armor that we find throughout the castle. This is some of the armor that we find throughout the castle that is put on display, but this is also some of the armor that the general enemies use. So it is kind of cool to see that they aren't just decorations, but that no, these are actually armor sets worn by the generals and the high-ranking officers of the Ashina military. So this is Wolf looking at 2 gravestones. These 2 gravestones, I believe, I'm not sure exactly. If I remember correctly, I believe this is the gravestone for both, I don't know which one is which, but for Lady Tomoe and for the previous Dragon's Heritage heir. So not Lord Kuro, but his predecessor, who was a close friend of Lord Ishin. So while Tomoe was one of Genichiro Sensei's, the other divine was a close friend of Lord Ishin. And what's interesting is Lord Ishin never tried to obtain the power of the Dragon's Heritage for himself the way Genichiro does. So I think that kind of just shows the difference between the 2 men. With Ishin being about just, martial prowess and wanting to, defend Ashina based on military might, whereas Genichiro wants any advantage, be it supernatural, regardless of its price and its cost on the body, especially his own body. This is a little temple that we can find outside of the castle. Not really that important. It's just a side area. It has like a little mini boss inside, as well as some items. I can't remember which items they are. I believe it's just consumables and money. So again, we have a picture of a moonlit night. We have some of the flowers here. Let me just look at the next page. Okay, so this is part of the Hirata estate. So this is where we first spawn in during the Hirata estate flashback, I believe. I know I am probably making quite a lot of mistakes. It's just because I genuinely cannot see. So here we have some of the buildings inside the Hirata estate. Some more here, a building here, a building here. There's like a little lake here. This looks like before the village got raided, as it looks quite tranquil and peaceful. The buildings, are still intact and aren't in flames, which is always a good sign. Here is where we find... here is where we fight an enemy, or a boss, called the Shinobi Hunter. We saw him and talked about him in the character part, but just for a quick recap, he is a very dangerous enemy who wields a long spear-type weapon, who is designed and trained specifically to hunt and kill shinobi. So it would make sense to bring one of these guys with you to attack a shinobi stronghold. Wolf defeats him. If you have the Makiri counter at this point, he's very easy. If not, he is quite challenging, but is very doable at the same time. Here we have some more pictures of the Hirata estate. This looks like the near the end, where we fight Juzo the drunkard. Juzo is not actually in this picture though. This is the lead up to the stairs, and past this gateway here is where we find the great shinobi owl, our father, who is leaned against a tree, seemingly mortally wounded, and tells Wolf to take the way around and then dies, quote unquote dies. This is a little hut / temple area where we can find one of the shinobi prosthetics. Again, another just scale comparison. So building and Wolf, as you can see, Wolf is essentially the same size as this building. It's a very small one. Here is the Hirata estate. This is the Hirata castle, as opposed to previously where we made our way essentially through the Hirata village. Still part of the estate, but this is the castle itself, and it is fully engulfed in flames. We have flames on the roof, flames inside the buildings, and making it almost impossible to pass. So that is why Wolf takes the way around. And as he's going through, it's never actually said, but it's insinuated that, the closer Wolf gets to Kuro, the more panicked that he gets, which is completely understandable. Here's another picture of some of the fires going around the estate. We have Wolf here, kind of just looking at the fires. Some more pictures of the fires here. There appears to be some kind of body of water, this looks like. But yeah, at this point, the Hirata estate is beyond saving. So, I can barely see what this is. However, it appears to be the entrance to the underground tunnels underneath Ashina. This is where we have to go after we defeat Lord Genichiro, or at least one of the areas that we have to go through. I believe after defeating Genichiro, there's 3 areas we can go to, but this is the best one to go to first, in my opinion. Here are some pictures of the underground area. It's a very shabby, decrepit looking place, very musty, very moldy. This is where kind of twisted doctors perform all kinds of medical experiments on the Ashina citizens, or at least Ashina prisoners, doing all sorts of horrific, unspeakable things to them. So it is quite a scary area to go through. Here is another picture of the inside of the tunnel system. However, we do have a door here leading us out. This is an area that we can find leading up to the tunnels. And here is Wolf, after making his way through the tunnels, coming across a very flimsy and very thin-looking bridge. Here, again, is another picture of inside of the tombs and catacombs. There appears to be a barrel or a sack of something that has spilled out. It almost looks like money, but I'm not sure. I don't think it's actually money. This is a picture of a dead body. As you can see, it is extremely mutilated. So this is one of the victims of the torturers or doctors in the underground labyrinth of Ashina. I'm not sure if Lord Ishin and Lord Genichiro actually know what is going on beneath their castle, because I have a feeling that Ishin, especially being a very honorable man, would not agree to what is being taken place here. Maybe these guys have been ordered to do this by Genichiro without Ishin's knowledge, but it is interesting how these horrific things are going on right under the noses of all of the honorable samurai nobles. Here is a picture of some of the the way out of the catacombs and tunnels. This is a picture of some of the crates that we can find in the tunnels. Some of them have animals in them, some of them have people in them, and this is just a picture of a man for scale. Okay, so we are starting the section on the Senpo Temple, where the monks reside. Before we go any further, again, I know I'm like a broken record. I do genuinely apologize for the darkness of the photos, of the videos. That is not my intent, and I can barely see them myself, so I am doing my best to kind of make sure that they are all visible as best as they can be, or if they're not as visible as best as they can be, at least I will try and describe them to the best of my ability. So let us continue. So here is another picture of some of the art that we can see in the temple. This is the outskirts of the temple grounds. As you can see, this area has a very orange and red color scheme, with a lot of the trees and a lot of the pinwheels that we find. Pinwheels have a very dark background behind them. Each red pinwheel is essentially a child that they kidnapped and who had died in their transformation, or their attempted transformation into the divine heir. However, there is one singular white pinwheel, and that marks, or that represents, the divine heir who the monks succeeded in, despite her despising the monks. Here we have some more pictures of the temple. So we start off with this picture of Wolf kind of in the interior of some of the temple outskirt buildings. This one is Wolf walking up to a shrine-looking building in the temple. This one I cannot make out, it is too dark. But this one is kind of Wolf making his way further into the temple, kind of leaving the outskirts and finally entering the main temple complex. Speaking of, this is part of the temple complex. This is one of the main areas, as you can see. It is a walkway. It looks like that Wolf here has just jumped out of the floorboards, moving this one aside. There's various statues of, I believe these are Buddha statues, if not maybe famous Ashina warrior statues, or very high-ranking monks in the temple. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, this area is very, very creepy. Here we have an area where we first encounter a group of enemies. These enemies include standard monks, as well as some extremely deformed monks that are almost more centipede than man. Very frightening the first time you come across them. Here is the memorial mob that I mentioned earlier, except this is their location in Senpo Temple. And here is just some of the little decorations that we can find throughout the temple, which is really cool. I know these kind of decorations are ignored by most players, but I really like them. It just makes the place feel more lived in. Not just Senpo Temple, but most of the areas in FromSoft games as a whole, if not all of the areas. So here is a couple of pictures. So this is the bridge where we fight the armored warrior. We mentioned and talked about him in part 1. He is here to try and save his son Robert, and we kick him out of one of these windows in the bridge. So these are the windows that I was talking about, and he falls to his death. Here we have a picture of a waterfall coming down through, or as you get closer to the heart of the temple. I believe this is one that you can actually swim to the bottom. There's a bunch of item pickups, consumables, and I believe 1 or 2 lore items as well. Here's another picture of an amazing waterfall coming down from the temple. I really like this with the mist and everything. Sorry, let me zoom out a little bit. I apologize. Actually, no, let me zoom in. I apologize again. So here is a picture of Wolf looking out from one of the balconies of the temple. I believe this is actually the area where the demon bell is located. I might be wrong about that, but I think this is what it is. Here is Wolf after kind of exiting that building we just talked about with all of the infested monks. He is looking on at the trees, at the waterfall, and at one of the main temple buildings. So Wolf is cutting and sneaking his way into this temple. Here is another altar inside the temple. You can see Wolf is in a massive chamber here with all of these humongous pillars. We see a couple of things here, multiple different stages of serpent. This one looks like an egg. This one looks like it's kind of just hatched, whereas this one looks like a hatched baby. This is a picture here of Wolf looking on at a pyre. I can't remember the purpose of this pyre, but again, we have Wolf here for scale. Here is the one of the main areas in Senpo Temple. So I believe this is where we enter the fight to defeat the 4 monkeys. I might be wrong, but this is what this looks like to me. Let me hold it up so you guys can see. If I'm wrong, I'll come back to it and have a closer look, but I believe that's what it is. Actually, no, that is what it is. So this is the area we are teleported to, where we have to defeat the 4 monkeys who are acting as guardians for the little realm that the divine child is located in. So this is, like I said, a very tedious boss fight and a very huge arena. You have to fight them all in specific ways. You know, one of them you have to make it so he can't see. One of them you have to make it so he can't hear. One of them you have to make it... actually, you don't have to do anything really. You just have to rush him and cut him down. And then the other one is invisible, and he's actually right behind you when you spawn in. And it took me so long, like an embarrassingly long time, to do this. So after we defeat the monkeys, we are then transported to this area. This is a very secluded area that is hidden from the monks, despite still being in the area of Simpo Temple. This is where the divine child is located, and she is very wary of visitors, and she is the one who gives Wolf the immortal blade. And at the time, she does not know that Wolf has the blood of the divine heir in him. So Wolf essentially says, like, hey, I need this blade. And she's like, if you touch it, you're gonna die. And Wolf is like, yeah, that's fine. And he grabs it and, dies. And the divine heir essentially just sighs and is like, oh, this idiot. And then Wolf gets back up and she's like, oh my god, you're part of the divine heir, aren't you? And kind of they go into a topic. She's a very sweet girl, very kind despite all the things that are done to her. And what's really cool is she gives Wolf rice throughout the game, which I used for one of the endings. But it is kind of very cute, just kind of coming back to this area and talking to this little girl. And she's like, oh, hi, Mr. Wolf, here's some rice that I made. I hope you enjoy it. It's just a very light-hearted moment in a very dark and disturbing location. This is us back. This is us inside the building with the divine heir. Oh, sorry, not the divine heir. The divine child. I should probably just clarify. So the divine heir is Kuro, the heir of the dragon's heritage. The divine child is the child that the monks of Senpo Temple created to kind of also have a similar ability, though not a relative or relation of Kuro or any of the dragon's heritage people. So we have Wolf here, the divine child here, and an altar up here. And again, like I said, this is where we obtain the mortal blade. Here's some more pictures of some art that we find. These are all different kinds of women in different attire. All really, really cool. I like this stuff a lot. So here is an interesting area. So here we have this massive pagoda. I believe there's an item inside here. I can't remember what it is. And then this is the demon bell. So the demon bell is accessed about a third of the way through the game. However, it is optional. And it's funny. There's a note next to it that says, under no circumstances do not ring this bell. And if you ring it, what happens is it makes the game significantly harder. So this is almost how to activate hard mode for your game. What is cool about it, and what I really like, is it's possible to get rid of the hard mode. So it's not like you ring it and your playthrough is ruined. If you ring it and then find that it is too difficult for you, you can use an item that it gives you to get rid of it. So you can kind of come back and use it and discard it as you please. I would not recommend using this on your first playthrough. This is something that is good for a second or third playthrough. So let us continue. Okay, moving on. So this looks like the start of a new area. However, it does appear that this picture is still taking place inside the Senpo Temple. Maybe this is the underground area, but I'm not sure. I'm just basing that assumption on all of the statues on which are littered throughout the temple. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that the book is always in frame. In part 1, there were some times where the book wasn't in frame, and now I'm super paranoid about having the book in frame while also having it close enough so you guys can see. So this is in one of the valleys. This is after we have defeated the Snake Eyes boss fight, and this is an area littered with monkeys, both normal monkeys and monkeys with rifles, which if there's anything cooler than a monkey, it's a monkey with a gun. And this is all leading up to the Guardian Ape fight. Here is some more pictures. This looks like the walkway that we go through to find the Snake Eyes boss. This is the bridge where we attempt to cross, where the serpent destroys the bridge, making us having to find another way around. And here is a statue that we can find hidden in kind of a tucked away little area, which has a snake skin, or a very young snake skin. So I'm assuming that this is the same serpent, but when it was very young. I forgot to mention in the earlier parts of the book, when I was talking about the area where we pass through the snake, or pass under the snake, leading up to that area, we find all of these massive shedded snake skins. And it's so cool and kind of is great environmental storytelling, essentially letting us know that, hey, there is something massive in this area. So here is some more art of the area where we fight the Snake Eyes enemies. These aren't... this isn't where we fight the Snake Eyes boss, but this is where we fight some of the Snake Eyes type soldiers. And then under here is the underground labyrinth where we enter to fight our final Snake Eyes enemy. What's cool about the Snake Eyes, both the bosses and the women, and the standard soldiers, is they're all women. And are extremely accurate with their rifles. They don't fight with swords or knives. They do have some kind of martial arts moves, but they are all based on gunfire. And as you are making your way through here, you are constantly being sniped by them. The term Snake Eyes means, that they are extremely accurate, and if you have played this game, you know that you are essentially running for your life the entire area. This whole sequence is one of my favorites in the game. The Snake Eyes bosses are very weak to the Sarumaru, which is the poison blade prosthetic tool, or at least the first one is. The second one isn't, based on the location we find her in. I'm hoping we get a picture of that soon. So this is some more pictures leading up to the Snake Eyes boss fight and in and around that area. Here we can see the serpent. This is the first time we have actually seen the serpent. This does not do the serpent any justice. While it definitely looks like a very large snake, it does not show just how massive that this serpent is. And as we make our way through here, we have another section of fighting or not fighting the serpent, but sneaking around him. And we eventually get past him by using a special type of ninjutsu, which can take over an enemy's mind. So we use this on a monkey, who then jumps across and starts screaming at the top of its lungs, which drives the serpent away from us and ends up killing our poor little monkey friend. May he rest in monkey paradise. So here we have some more pictures. We have some statues here. We have some pictures of some cliffs. This is very reminiscent of where we actually can have the option to fight the snake enemy. Here is Wolf coming up to one of the flowers. I believe this is one of the flowers that is needed for the main story, just based on how it looks here. However, I may be mistaken. Okay, so now we are officially past the main Snake Eyes enemy and are now in the Poison Swamp area. It would not be a Miyazaki game if there wasn't at least one Poison Swamp, and it's good to know that even feudal Japan has poison swamps. So poison swamps are not limited to any specific region. So here is the lower level of that same area. There's loads of trees that are very sickly, and more of the Snake Eyes enemy types, as well as our second boss. This boss is very similar to the first one. However, being in a poison swamp area, the Subaru prosthetic is not very useful against her. Because, she's essentially used to poison at this point, which is very understandable. Where is this? Okay, this is after we exit the cave and are now on the path to the Guardian Ape. I'm assuming that's what this is, just based on these statues, which we find all over the place. We have a picture of Wolf down here, making his way up, as well as Wolf here to kind of taking in the vista. What is this? I can barely see what this is. Okay, so this is us making our way through the cave area. So we have Wolf down here. I don't know if you guys can see him. That's him there. And we have an enemy with his back turned. And I believe there's another enemy here. And this is where we use the ninjutsu. This is not the monkey I mentioned, but this is another enemy that we can use on just to draw the serpent's ire onto him rather than us. Some more pictures of some of the poison swamp area. This kind of looks like it's leading into Mibu Village, or maybe this is the Misty Valley area. I actually cannot tell. They look very similar, mainly just because the Misty Valley leads into Mibu Village. Up here is what I was talking about earlier. So this is some shredded snake skin. This is obviously a lot smaller, so obviously the snake shedded this when it was very young. The snake is seemed as a deity to some of the inhabitants of this, especially those in this region of the area, which is very, very cool. If we don't see it soon, I will talk about something about the serpent, because it is interesting. So here is, I believe this is the house where we fight the Mist Noble. The Mist Noble is one of the Fountainhead nobles who is in this area, and it is the one causing all of the fog. He is a boss, but he dies in 2 normal hits or 1 death from above blow, which you can access very, very easily. This is another picture of Wolf approaching the same house, but just from a different angle. this is some more pictures of the valley and leading into the Mibu village. I believe this is Mibu village here. So since it doesn't seem that it's going to cover it since we've already moved on, I will just briefly describe our final battle with the serpent. So we get to a point, and this is completely optional, where you can go around the other sides of some areas, and you eventually come across this ledge with a fallen tree which you can walk over, and it is hanging over a massive, massive drop into a canyon filled with water below. And below this, there is a very jagged rock kind of peeking its way out of the water. The serpent is coiled around it, seemingly sleeping or resting. We are able to jump off this area and get a death blow on the serpent, in which we land on its head, putting our full weight and momentum of our fall into our katana's thrust, and we end up killing the serpent and getting its liver. The liver is a key item for one of the endings of the game. So, not optional, not needed for playing the game, but definitely worth your while doing. Even if you don't want that ending, it's still fun to finally kill that snake. So, pictures here of some huts and stuff. This does look like Mibu Village to me. I may be wrong, and if I am wrong, I apologize. It is just so hard to see these pictures. Okay, so this is us now in the Mibu Village. The Mibu Village, like I mentioned earlier, actually I didn't mention earlier, so the Mibu Village is an area that has been, or a village that has been contaminated by the everlasting waters, and this has turned the population into kind of these subhuman entities. They're not quite human, but they're not quite Fountainhead nobles. They're kind of like a mixture between them, and they are almost cult-like in their belief, kind of worshipping the water supply. So the water supply you can actually jump down into, and when you jump down into it, you see two things. You see loads of drowned bodies, which are either people who fell into the water and were drinking so much that they would not leave, or were sacrifices. And you also find these little slug enemies at the very bottom. So these appear to be some kind of creature that has washed down from the Fountainhead Palace in the Divine Realm, because in that massive lake you can find these guys as well, which is very cool. Some more art here of some of the village areas. Again, it is a village that has gone to hell completely. It's very difficult to make out exactly what this is, but there appears to be some kind of body here that Wolf is looking at. This is one of the gnarled trees with a picture of a man here, which for a size comparison. And then once we are done with Mibu Village, we make our way to this area where we find another of the key items that we need. And this is our gateway into the Divine Realm. So if we have gotten all of the key items needed up until this point, so the item that we find here, and the flower that we find after defeating the Guardian Ape, we can make our way here and enter this marriage, kind of, I don't know what it's called. Oh, sorry, a marriage palanquin. And after we wait here, we see that the creature that seems to be have made of yarn, or almost like a handmade doll that we saw in part 1, comes and picks us up and transfers us to the Divine Realm. We can see his hand kind of peeking through here, which is very, very cool. And I can't remember if you see his hand at this point before you actually get inside the palanquin, but it's very foreboding in this area, because you look up, or at least in this picture, because it's like Wolf would look up and be like, what is that? This is our next section into the Divine Realm, where we fight the corrupted monk in her true form, and enter the Fountainhead Palace. The corrupted monk in her illusion form is fought near the end of Mibu Village, so she is kind of the boss for that area. I forgot to mention that earlier, I'm sorry. So here's a picture of this rope-like creature who at this point has Wolf in his hand and is walking him to the one of the entrances to the Divine Realm. Again, very creepy looking creature. Seems actually very harmless, I'm not gonna lie, but it definitely gives off very creepy vibes. It looks like something that someone would make up for like an SCP or a some kind of cryptid, I think, but maybe that's just me. So here we have our first entrance into the Divine Realm. This is before we reach the Fountainhead Palace. So here is the corrupted monk in her true form, and here is Wolf. This picture is cool just because it shows the size difference between him and the trees in this area. So as I mentioned in the in the character parts in part 1, the corrupted monk is a very challenging but fun boss fight. She has 3 phases, and she is, however, able to be cheesed, because what you can do is you can jump up onto these branches, and if you get behind her, you can jump down and land a death blow, and you can do this 3 times, which essentially ends the fight instantly. She is another enemy that has immortality, but based on having the centipede type enemies, type life forms inside of her, which I absolutely cannot stand the thought of. I know I said I wouldn't mention the cheese, but just seeing how it shows the area, I thought I might as well. So up here is a couple of really cool pictures. So this is the Fountainhead Palace, the main area of the Divine Realm. So this is Wolf here looking onwards. We see that there is a massive body of water here. This is where the divine waters originate, and you can see that they are flowing down, and they flow down into Ashina and eventually pool where the guardian ape is. So that's why, with Mibu Village being so close to this area, they got extremely contaminated. Here is some of the buildings that we can find in this area. And then here is Wolf making his way through some of the buildings. You have to take this area very stealthily, because the Fountainhead nobles, while very weak, are able to set a spell on you, which causes you to become enfeebled, where you can't move, and then they run at you and kill you in 1 hit. So, very cool way of making an enemy that is extremely weak actually dangerous, which I think is really cool. A lot of games do not get that right. So here is us crossing one of the bridges. However, I'm not sure if it's this bridge or one of the bridges gets obliterated by the huge carp, which we find in this area, and it is possible to kill him through a quest. So down here, this is Wolf kind of having passed the houses where the nobles live. This is now him entering the area where the Okami warriors reside, and they are very powerful. Throughout this entire area, there is one Okami warrior who essentially snipes you the entire time with lightning bolts, which can be very deadly. And it's very satisfying once we fight our way through all of their ranks and eventually kill them. They are fairly they're not hard enemies, but they're not difficult enemies. But they jump around, and their moveset is very fast and very erratic. So they make for a very fun fight, I think so at least. Here is some of the statues of some of the standard dragon enemies that we saw in part 1. Here is a picture. So this is another area of the nobles' households. Here is one of the areas that we get through after swimming our way through a chase scene where we are chased by the giant carp, and we eventually come up through this little hole here. Again, if you have thalassophobia, it is a nightmare. Here we just have a little house or building in the Okami warrior section. So we can see a man here for scale. And the Okami warriors tend to like to dance on the rooftops. So getting your way up there is kind of difficult, not because it's hard to get up there with your grappling hook, but if you're up there and like the Okami warriors on the building next to you see you, they'll just start chucking lightning at you. So quite annoying. Here is a great spread of the body of water in the fountainhead. So we see how massive this is, seeming how that even some of the buildings here have been flooded. We have this massive sakura tree in the middle, and underneath this we find lots and lots of interesting things. We find buildings which have seemingly been submerged in the water. We find normal carps, we find the giant carps, and we find a headless. This headless is in my opinion anyway, the hardest non-boss enemy in the entire game, because you have to fight him completely underwater, and the underwater movement is bad at best and awful at worst, and the combat underwater is abysmal. So this is a guy that you almost want to come back and defeat right before you actually finish the game, once you are fully leveled up. Or at least that's what I did. So here is us making our way up. This is an area where we find an NPC who is a father of someone in Mibu village, and she essentially says that her father was taken there and has not been the same since. Actually, no, we don't find her in Mibu village. We find her later on in the Fountainhead Palace. I apologize for that. Anyway, her father has become essentially enslaved by the Great Carp. So he rings this bell, and we can ring this bell too, to summon the carp and give him food. The way we kill the Great Carp is we cannot fight him underwater. There is a way, and I cannot remember how exactly, but there is a way to get a poisonous bait item. The normal item is just called fish bait, which is essentially like fish food for him. But you can get poisonous bait, and that kills him. And he washes up in the area, or his body washes up in the area where the guardian ape is, just kind of showing that, this whole body of water pools at that area, and even a creature as massive as that carp still ends up in that area. I believe there's an item you can get from, and I think it's a pretty powerful item, but I cannot remember. I apologize. This is us underwater, having to go through some of these buildings to avoid being attacked by the carp. So we have Wolf swimming. What is good, at least, about the underwater sections in Sekiro, As you guys know, underwater sections in video games are often terrible, but at least Wolf is able to move extremely fast and is able to hold his breath indefinitely due to a shinobi breathing method. So that's cool. If you had to come up for air and stuff, it would make this area from annoying to very, very tedious. Here's some more pictures of the underwater area. As you can see, there's loads of different buildings here which have been submerged, and they are all in different stages of disarray and kind of being turned back into part of the oceanic or the lakeside environment. You know, they're covered in barnacles and seaweed and stuff like that, which is very, very cool. I always like seeing man-made structures being reclaimed by nature in media. So this for me looks really, really cool. So here is after we get through the water section and pop up. We have a high-ranking fountainhead noble. So all of the fountainhead nobles are obviously nobles, you know, the nobility of this area. However, this enemy is like the highest ranking noble. So he's a bit harder to take down, but still quite simple. He does the same thing where he tries to enfeeble you, but seeing as you jump up right next to him, he's very hard for it to happen. The enfeeble spell essentially has no range limit. It's based on line of sight. So you can be on the other side of the map, but if one of them sees you, you still get enfeebled. Whereas you jump out of the water and you're like 5 feet away from this guy. So it's very easy to just assassinate him. Here is some more different pictures and tapestries that we find throughout the Fountainhead Palace and Divine Realm. Really, really cool. As well as some of the different items and benches and stuff that we find in the houses here. So here is that same building that we just entered after defeating the noble. We go through this door here and start making our way up. Where are we making our way up to? We shall see. So this is us going up to the next area. So we have cleared the Fountainhead Palace and we are now making our way up to the entrance to the Divine Dragon's domain. So you can see Wolf is making his way up. Actually, one thing about this area is it's a massive staircase with a bunch of okami, which are fairly easy to deal with at this point. But what's cool about it is there's loads of lightning striking the ground all around you. It's not so much a case of you have to hide from the lightning, but it just adds to, like, you know, you're coming closer and closer to the divine, or to the heavens at least. So here is Wolf at the end of his journey to the Fountainhead Palace in the Divine Realm. So this is an altar which we pray to enter the Divine Dragon's domain. Here, I don't know if you can make it out, but there is a woman who is dead, who is essentially dead but still clinging on to the altar. There is a fan theory, and I don't know if this is true, and I don't know if I necessarily believe it. It's not canon, it's not official, it's just a theory. But some people speculate that this woman here is Lady Tomoe. She being an Okami warrior, she's the one who taught Genichiro the lightning arts. So it would make sense that she resided here, and since she died, people believe that this might be her. It would be cool if it was, but there's no real confirmation whether it is or is not, so it's kind of up to each player to decide. Here is an amazing double spread. So this is after we enter the Divine Dragon's domain. And this is Wolf facing down the Divine Dragon. So we have Wolf here with his sword and the immortal blade on his back, and the Divine Dragon coming out of his floral caked rock. He has his massive sword with all of these different kind of notches coming out of it, his missing arm, and his head and neck look a lot paler and a lot ghostlier compared to the rest of his body. He looks much more ethereal here, especially with his weapon. I really like the Divine Dragon. Not in terms of a boss fight. His boss fight is kind of ridiculously easy, but as a design for a character and a boss, I think he is so cool. So this is after we get this. So after we defeat the Divine Dragon, we don't kill him. We just take his tears, which is the final piece that we need. So after that, we head back to Ashina, and when we arrive, we see things are much different. When we arrive back, Lord Ishin has died, and since that, the Interior Ministry has begun its full-on assault on Ashina. So as you're making your way through, you encounter both the Ashina warriors and the Interior Minister samurai, as well as the Interior Minister shinobi, which are all over the rooftops. There's even one shinobi on a rooftop which has 2 dogs with him, which is just so funny that a shinobi essentially climbed up to like halfway up a pagoda while carrying 2 dogs. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I find that really funny. So here is Wolf on top of one of the higher buildings looking down. So this is an area that we passed. This is the walkway that we made our way through to get up to the castle in the beginning of the game. However, as you can see, it is now up in flames because the Interior Ministry are here and they mean business. They are killing everyone and setting fire to everything. As I said in part 1, they have these kind of flamethrower firework launcher guns, which are really cool and is really effective at lighting these buildings on fire, especially if you know what Japanese buildings in this time period were constructed out of. So here we are making our way through. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. So we get up to here. We enter the castle. We go to Kuro's room. And Lady Emma is tending to Lord Ishin, who has died and is laying on the floor. She also tells us that Lord Kuro escaped, and that he has placed beacons on all of the rooftops to lead Wolf to him. So we say our goodbyes to Emma, we say our goodbyes to Ishin, and head on to find and rescue Lord Kuro. This is us creeping up. This is another enemy here, very similar to Juzo the Drunkard. We saw him in the final page of part 1. The captain, or one of the captains of the Interior Ministry. Fun fact, this is actually the same area where we fought our second samurai boss, or general. So if you remember, I said that there was a general fight who is in a courtyard, but he is surrounded by a bunch of standard enemies as well as a potbanger enemy. This is in the same area as that. So it is really cool backtracking through where we started from, and seeing how up in flames everything is, and essentially how this region or this state is done for now that Lord Ishin is dead. Here we continue our way through after defeating the captain. We find more and more of the areas that we have been through up in flames. Unfortunately, Inosuke and his mother do not survive. Inosuke being a blind man, and his mother being a blind old woman, both ended up perishing in the fire. It's never specified how, but I'm assuming that based on both of them being blind, as well as Inosuke being a samurai retainer to the Ashina clan, they would have killed him even if he was not blind. Here is a picture of the Demon of Hatred, which we talked about earlier. The Demon of Hatred spares no regard for who he kills, whether it's Ashina soldiers, Interior Ministry soldiers, does not matter. And all through our backtrack here, we find massive scorch marks and massive claw marks, and soldiers cowering in panic with burn marks and just terrified based on this thing coming in and wreaking havoc in their ranks. So Wolf is here, he spots the Demon of Hatred, and they are about to engage in battle. And that is the end of part 2 and the end of the book. So we covered all of the environment area, but we finish off with this great double spread of Wolf. This is Wolf atop the Ashina castle, where he is about to do battle with Lord Genichiro, which is a really cool picture and just shows how much Wolf has changed. I wish we got to see a picture of meeting Kuro and where we end up fighting Genichiro again, and then end up fighting Lord Ishin, because it's the same area that we start the game in. What's really cool, and is a very small detail if you look this up on YouTube, when we first fight Genichiro at the start of the game, Wolf, being a very out of practice shinobi, kind of fumbles his sword when he goes to draw it, whereas at the end of the game, he draws it in one smooth motion, showing that how much he has changed. So everyone, that is the end of the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice official Artworks book. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this book as much as I enjoyed making this video. Like I said in part 1, any excuse to talk about Sekiro, I will take any day of the week. And it is a blast covering this, being one of my favorite games of all time, and my second favorite From Software game. Bloodborne is my favorite, but in terms of combat, Sekiro is equal to none. So, thank you for watching. However, if you are listening to this video while trying to relax or go to sleep, this is the end of the video. So I would click off now in case an ad pops up and wakes you up. I'll give you a few seconds to do so. And yeah, so thank you again for watching. I'm not sure what the next art book is going to be. I'm not sure whether to do another From Software game or kind of take a break and do another game, but we shall see. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. This is Crimson signing off. Good evening.